Now, I know why you're here. You saw the title of the podcast, and I know it feels very clickbaity, but bear with me because what I'm going to share with you today is very important, and it does relate to fat loss and a lot of hidden mistakes that people make. We see it time and time again in our programming and working with women for all these years. But we are going to go through all of them today. And I'm also going to give you a free resource so that way you can download it and have your very own guide for you to look at and say, okay, yeah, I am doing these things, and I need to really get real with myself about the steps in here that are going to uncover why I could potentially be struggling. Okay. So one of the main reasons why people quit is because they stop seeing results. That is what we hear often, despite putting in the work, right? They are doing all the things, but they're feeling like things aren't working. And it isn't your fault. And let me explain. Before I knew better, I was that person. Okay. So I was the person hopping from diet to diet, sticking to it for 2 to 3 weeks, and then quitting because I wasn't seeing results. And now that I know better, I know exactly why I wasn't achieving results. So if you feel like you bounce between programs, you quit after a few weeks, you have a hard time adhering to certain things, or when you do, or maybe you started something recently, it seems like it's not working, this is definitely the episode for you. And also, if you feel like your progress is moving really slow, maybe you are on a program where you've been doing a thing and you're like, ugh, this feels like it's a snail's pace, right? Maybe you dropped your calories and you feel like things are still not moving. You feel like the scale is stuck, or maybe it's going up, right? Which is usually not ideal for most women that I encounter that look to me for fat loss and fitness results. Okay. Let's take a step back. For those of you that are new here, my name is Diane Flores. I've been in the health and fitness space for over 17 years. I'm an IFBB bodybuilding pro, which also makes me a professional dieter. And I'm a personal trainer, I'm a health coach, and I have been tracking macros and calories for a very long time. I've been 200 pounds. I have professionally dieted my whole professional bodybuilding life. I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've been shredded, I have been obsessive, I've hated my body, I now love my body. I've had unhealthy eating behaviors and everything in between. Before we dive in with both hands, both feet, our whole body, I want to acknowledge some of you who are leaving the best reviews over on Apple. And if you would love to be featured as a shout out, please make sure to go find the Apple review area. It's kind of hard. You have to dig for it once you're on my actual podcast list of episodes. If you scroll all the way towards the middle, you should see an area where it shows the reviews, and we have quite a few 5-star reviews. And one that came in from KM Silva _ PhD. Somebody be getting a PhD over here, Miss Kim Silva. Favorite podcast, 5 stars. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and this is my favorite go-to for all things health and wellness. Well, thank you, Miss Silva. It is inspiring and fun listen, especially when doing cardio or on a long commute. Thank you for being valuable and sharing such great content. Well, you are welcome. This is my passion. This is my passion project. You guys, we are coming up on 3 years of the podcast. Who knew? Usually most podcasts don't make it past 1 episode. There's some crazy statistics out there. And the other ones that do make it past 1 episode generally don't make it past 10. And we are over 200 freaking episodes. And that, my friends, is because of you guys and you sharing and commenting and giving me such great feedback. And it lights me on fire every day to get up and think about crazy shit to talk to you guys about. Okay, let's dive in. This is going to be a no BS. You've been here for a minute. You be knowing. It's no BS, real talk. I can get a little soapboxy. Okay. But let me justify that for you. I get soapboxy because I have done the things that I feel like I can get soapboxy about, right? I'm not being soapboxy because I'm being a dick. I'm being soapboxy because I was that girl. I did those things and I learned a better way. And I want you to do the same. I want you to take action. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about some common misconceptions now related to what we're talking about, right? A lot of people think they cannot lose fat or change their body, lose weight because they're genetically cursed. That's totally a myth, right? Now, when we speak about the conversation on contest prep, there is a level of genetics that play into your favor with that. But when it comes to just overall fat loss and wellness and maintaining healthy levels of body fat, you are not genetically cursed. Okay. So let's just squash that myth and stop blaming it on your parents and your grandma and your cousins, because if I was going to be relying on genetics, I would certainly be thinking the same thing, right? I come from a family of obesity and lots of diseases and things like that. And so if I looked back at my family, my cousins, my aunts, my grandmothers, I would assume that I was cursed to be unhealthy and overweight. And that's just not the case. Okay. The second one is no, your metabolism is not ruined, right? A lot of people think, oh, I think my metabolism's slow, my metabolism is ruined. Generally, not the case. In very rare cases, we do see it because we deal with an extreme sort of dieting population, which is contest prep and competition prep. And I myself have done almost 20 bodybuilding shows, and I will tell you that it has skewed my metabolism in some way, shape, or form throughout that journey, but it is likely not the case for most healthy people who are just trying to lose some weight. Okay. And the third one is no, you're not too old, right? You're not too old to burn fat, lose weight, change your body. We're proving that every single day with our clients in the studio over at Venus. You know, if you know some of the clients there, some of them, I'm not sure if they're okay with me sharing their names, but you have seen women in their late 50s, early 60s, and we also have a couple clients in their early 70s who are coming in and making dramatic changes, not only to their bodies, but their health and their lives. Okay. So if I've lost you for a second, you started scrolling on TikTok and multitasking, please come back to me because it's about to get juicy. Okay. I'm going to go over a few hidden but common mistakes that a lot of people make that prevent them from seeing their results despite all of their hard work. All right. So rather than quit, what I want you to do is I want you to take a step back and I want you to discover what can be potentially holding you back from your success. Okay. So this episode is going to tell you what those mistakes are, how to correct them so that way you can burn fat and continue to see results, or actually see results if you haven't seen any. And of course, don't forget to check the description or the show notes for your freebie guide. Now, this is called a plateau buster guide. It is going to show you areas in which you might be making these mistakes, some alternatives, and things that you should do to decide whether or not your strategy is a failed strategy, which is like not a good plan for you to follow, or if there are some hidden mistakes that you're making that could be the culprit. And I'm going to probably bet it's the latter. Are you ready? Don't look at my armpits. I need to shave them. The number one mistake that people make is they underestimate how many calories they are truly eating. And I know you're probably like, palm to forehead smack right now. Like, duh, Diane, like we know that, right? But most people are eating way more than they think. And 99% of people who start dieting make this mistake. And this is why when we take new contest prep clients or people who want to compete, we play the long game with them. We don't want to take a client and put them into a 16-week prep or a 20-week prep without actually getting to know them, working with them for a bit, understanding their body, observing their dietary patterns, right, with their tracking and things like that. And being detectives, and we do this with our Goddess Body Project girls and Ditch Deprivation girls, which are just two different programs we offer, because we want to make sure that you aren't missing something, like a secret hidden something that's in there that is really holding you back from achieving your results. Okay. I'm going to read a little bit of stats for you because I think it's eye-opening when we see the data and then realize that it's likely that we are part of this research or this part of these results. Okay. Now, the British Journal of Nutrition did a study on women struggling to lose body fat, despite saying that they were all small eaters, right? They didn't eat much. Maybe they ate like one meal a day. My stepmom is infamous for that, so I love her dearly, but they reported that they were eating 1,340 calories. That's what they thought in this study. Okay. After or through the process, it was discovered that they were eating 2,500 calories. Now, that is a stark difference, 1,340 to 2,500. So, for those of you that aren't aware, it takes 3,500 excess calories for you to gain a pound. So, 1 pound is the equivalent of 3,500 calories. So you could see how this would quickly add up and hold people back from actually burning fat or seeing results. It's because they're underestimating. So after this first initial sort of intake part of the study was done, what they did was they created, I'm assuming, some kind of meal plan for these women that was indeed 1,340 calories, and the women lost an average of 1.6 pounds per week. That is remarkable. Other studies even show that true dietitians underestimate their calorie intake as well. So this is a common thing, right? And let me just tell you again, professing as a professional dieter, there's a lot of times when I'm not dieting where I'm like, why is this happening? And I know better. I'm just like, oh, okay, because like I'm dipping into, the snacks and doing this and that all adds up. So with that being said, moral of that story is most people are bad at guessing. Most people. I would love to say all people, but I know us psychotic bodybuilder competitors are like 1% of the population. And we have a little bit of a leg up in terms of eyeballing and guesstimating when we've been doing it for a while. Not saying that that's recommended, but I definitely know that if I really hone in on it and I'm mindful, I'm very aware of calories within certain food items. Okay. The other reason why this happens is that with bad guesstimating, a lot of people put a halo on healthy foods, right? And I used to do this nutrition talk, and a lot of our onboarding for our transformation programs, we would like do them in person and all that before the C word took over the world in 2020. And for example, avocado toast, right? That's like the thing. It's still a thing. You see it on menus everywhere. However, on quick glance, you're like, avocado toast, great. It's healthy, right? Um, you've got 2 slices of bread, you've got a medium avocado and a little bit of olive oil, and you're like, that's a healthy meal, right? It's a decent option. However, that will be easily registering as over 600 calories. And let's just say for a very generic average that you are on a diet plan or you're trying to lose some body fat and we put you into macro counting or a meal plan or something like that. And we want you to consume, let's just say 1,500 calories for the sake of a nice, pretty number that's not too low and it's not too high. It's very Goldilocks, right? 1,500 calories. Well, if one meal is 600 calories of that, it doesn't really leave you a whole lot for the rest of the day and for any potential overages in any of your meals if you're just guessing. Okay. So what do you do? What do you do? Right? Nobody likes to hear, well, you got to track. I know. Listen, I don't track anymore, but that's because I tracked for over a decade while I was bodybuilding. Right. And I can discern with foods, I can tell how they were prepared, how much extra calories that's going to be. And what I mean by that is if I see the meal is greasy, if I see that it's breaded, if I see that it's covered in some kind of sauce, I can immediately say, I'm going to add 200 calories to this meal, just as a rough buffer of excess in terms of my calorie consumption for this meal, right? Until you have reached that level, like you've fought all the bosses, right? Like you're in Super Mario World and you fought the, Bowser, and then you go to the next level and you got to fight the next boss, and then you got to keep going, right? That's what like dieting and transforming your body, that's how I equate it. Like every level, you're gonna have hard shit. You're gonna have the fucking Koopa Troopas coming at you, and all the Super Mario things that can kill you and make you into the smaller version, right? And they set you back. That is all gonna happen. It's like a video game. It's kind of like life, but we're just talking about dieting right now. So with that, in order to move to the next level, you have to learn new skills, right? You get to a new level in Super Mario World. And I'm sorry for those of you that are under 40 and you're like, bitch, we didn't play that shit. But that's what I used to play back in the day. I wasn't playing Call of Duty and all the stuff that my boys are playing. It was Super Mario. So bear with me. You are on this level and you're going to be challenged along the way. And that first level might seem kind of easy, especially if you came from a high processed diet where we're eating a lot of packaged foods. And now you're like, okay, I'm eating whole foods and all that. And like, I'm feeling better. And like, it doesn't taste as bad as I thought. And then you get through that level, right? You fought that boss. Now you're on the next level, right? You're cruising along and maybe you keep dying and things keep happening and you can't get to the final boss. And it's because you haven't acquired the new skills to beat that level. And I'm trying to tell you the next skill you need to beat the next boss, which means your next level of fitness or health or fat loss, is you have to understand what you are truly eating in a day. Okay. So the way to do that, and I know this was a long-winded example, but I really wanted to just drive the point home, is that you have to start measuring your food so you understand, okay? A food scale goes a long way. Measuring cups, measuring spoons, anything at this point is better than nothing. My favorite is preferred is a food scale. However, if that just makes you crazy, just do measuring cups and spoons because it's easy and you don't have to do a lot of thinking, okay? Then I want you to learn a new app. Okay. You're at the next boss. You're at that level. And the only way you're going to pass that level and get through Bowser on this level is if you bust open your phone and you download MyFitnessPal and you learn how to use it. Okay. Just like fighting Bowser, you have to use a lot of skills, a lot of tactics, a lot of tools, a lot of fireballs. You have to do all the things for you to pass it. And it's frustrating. And sometimes you die and you have to come back and you have to do it all over again. But the sooner that you do it, the better off you are. So MyFitnessPal, that's step 2. The third one is you need to try it out and give yourself some time. Be patient with it. And it is going to be a huge reality check for you. Plus, it gives you the experience of visually seeing things with your eyes as you're putting them in your phone and understanding visually, especially if you're a visual learner, what 4 ounces of chicken looks like, or what a cup of potatoes looks like, or whatever it is that you're eating, right? A tablespoon of nut butter. That's a huge one people always eat way too much of, is any kind of nut butter or oil. So this will give you that reality check so you can see it visually, learn. And as you get better with it, right? It's a practice, not a perfect. You will start to see the changes in your body, on the scale, in your clothes, all of that. Okay. Some things to keep in mind are a huge culprit are hidden calories. And this is something that a lot of people miss. And we go in depth on that in our freebie plateau buster guide. But hidden calories are a huge one that hold people back. And that looks like lots of different things. But just to name a few, that is going to be sauces, oils, butters, breadings, dressings, bites, licks, and tastes, and snacksidents, which we affectionately call BLTs. And this could easily be over 300 calories worth of your day that keep you stuck. Right. So any of these little negligible calories where you're like, oh, it's just a little bit of ranch. Oh, it's just a little bit of avocado. It's just a little bit of ranch dressing drizzled all over my pizza or whatever. Right. All of this stuff adds up. So that, my friends, is the number one mistake. And I bet if you just focused on that and you didn't even listen to the rest of this podcast, you would make exceptional progress. Okay, but you're still here. So let's dive into the second reason. The second mistake is that people are not tracking their progress properly. And you might think, well, that's bizarre. What does that have to do with mistakes that I'm making to lose fat? Well, this is a huge mistake. Okay, huge. All right. Things that we see people do that discourage them and demotivate them is that they weigh themselves sporadically. So they'll weigh themselves all different times of the day, with clothes on, without clothes on, before they actually go to the bathroom, different days of the week. And it is inconsistent. And there is no real consistency to their tracking. So it is all over the place. And maybe they do it once a week. Okay. Weighing randomly is going to give you random data and is going to leave you frustrated, and you are likely going to want to quit. Again, we've seen this probably hundreds of times at this point. Weighing once a week is not going to give you enough data. Now, I put an asterisk here and a little caveat, because if you find that you are triggered by weighing yourself, right? I deal with thousands and thousands of women over the years, and I would say that we have had a handful of women that are just like, I can't do that. It sends me into a tailspin. I start stressing out and it just derails me from feeling motivated. Know thyself. Okay. I'm speaking to those of you that are like, it's fine. It doesn't really drive me crazy, but it's not my favorite because it does discourage me, blah, blah, blah. You need to understand certain things. And honestly, I'm speaking to the others who get triggered as well too. So if I lost you, come back to me for a second. All right. You have to understand there are always going to be fluctuations in the scale. And I feel like I have to really beat this into everyone's head, okay, like lovingly, not aggressively, because I had to beat it into my own head, which is there are various reasons why your scale could be fluctuating. Okay. There could be hormone disruption of many different kinds. Okay. My Zoom likes to give me a thumbs up every time I give you guys a thumbs up. Okay. Hormonal disruptions. And this can range from a multitude of hormonal disruptions that a lot of people don't think about. It could be female hormones. It could be thyroid hormones. It could be cortisol. It could be a myriad of hormonal things that could be going on, disrupting water balance and what the scale is going to reflect back to you. Okay. Sleep. If you do not get consistent sleep, that scale is not going to be consistent. The less you sleep, you generally weigh more the next morning. We also have the idea of food volume. Your food has weight to it. Okay. So if you eat really late one night, or you eat really late and then you only sleep 4 hours and then you weigh yourself, you are destined to wake up probably 2 to 3 pounds heavier. So there's food volume to consider. Then we also have things like sodium. How much water have you been drinking? Training inflammation, which is a huge one. All of these things can contribute to the scale showing you a different number than you'd like. Okay. And also digestion, and have you pooped? Are you not pooping regularly? Like lots and lots of considerations. And it takes a minute to get all of those lifestyle factors in line. And so when you first start a program, you really have to be patient, because if you've been interacting with yourself and your body for one way for a very long time, and then you switch to something else, there's a lot that has to adjust. And honestly, I feel like 4 weeks of an adjustment period without freaking out or trying to change anything or stressing that you're doing things wrong is ideal. 4 weeks, kind of like at least 4 weeks to get everything dialed in, especially if you're doing anything like a transformation program or you sign up for some kind of program somewhere. You have to think like you're now establishing a new set of routines and habits and all of these things that maybe you weren't doing before. And it's going to take some time for that to all balance. Okay. So what do you do in the meantime? Well, weigh yourself a minimum of 3 times per week. That will at least give you some consistent data. And I highly suggest that you do it at the same time of day, the same days of the week, and the same conditions. So after you go pee and poo, take all your clothes off, and then weigh yourself on the scale before you drink anything or you eat anything, right? Because that is weight volume. That isn't just going to magically disappear when you get on the scale. Then what I want you to do is I want you to keep track of that and write it down every day, and then take a weekly average. All right. So for example, maybe you weigh Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Super easy. Obviously, everybody's schedules are different, so make it work for you, but you know that you're going to have quality sleep the night before. Your food's going to be consistent, and it's going to be a consistent measure in terms of when and the entire circumstances. Okay. Pick 3 days, write it down, and then you're going to take that and compare it week to week over your averages, right? So give it, like I said, 3 to 4 weeks before switching things around, preferably 4, and look at your trends over the course of that month, right? What are your averages for each week? And if you're trending down, then if that's your goal, then you're on the right track. Okay, so that, my friends, is mistake 2, not properly tracking your progress. So we've covered number 1, which is underestimating your calories. Now we just went over number 2 with tracking progress. And number 3 is another one that we see very often, is when people eat the calories that they burned back. Okay, so eating back your calories is a surefire way to keep you stuck and or have you gaining more weight. Now, things you have to consider. After you work out, you're generally hungrier. It kicks up your appetite, right? And a lot of times people feel like they want to compensate themselves or reward themselves for their hard work, especially if they went long periods of time, there's my thumbs up again, without working out and eating well, right? Or doing some kind of regimen. We feel entitled to treat ourselves. Oh, that was great work. I'm going to treat myself. Treat yourself, girl. Listen, I'm being an asshole about this because I'm going to tell you a story. I used to work at the Gold's Gym in our town. It was a second job to my medical assisting job that I worked 40 hours a week. And I would work at the gym on the weekends in the daycare for exchange for a free gym membership. I was hustling. I was a single mom doing my thing. When I would go to the gym on days I wasn't working, I was able to leave the kiddos in the daycare, go do my workout. And they had this excellent smoothie bar, fabulous, fabulous smoothie bar. And occasionally I felt the need to treat myself. Well, let me tell you, I would treat myself to a peanut butter protein shake. And I was doing that for weeks. And then eventually I realized the importance of calories at some point in that journey. And then I remember casually looking up at the board and seeing the calorie count and having a mini heart attack when I realized that I was trying to stick to, I think at that time was like 1,300 calories or something crazy. And that shake was 800 calories. Okay. Which left me not many calories for the rest of the day to eat regular food. And I wasn't just going to eat one meal. And I was drinking those calories, right? So people usually eat way more than they normally would when they are working out and training because they justify it because, oh, I'm working out, I'm building muscle, doing all this stuff. Y'all don't need that much. Okay. Take it from me. When I've been shredded and peeled and lean and diced and honestly, even trying to gain muscle periods in an off season when I'm trying to gain muscle, there was no logical reason for me to, after the gym, run through the drive-through or go through Jamba Juice and treat myself to a healthy shake that was like 5, 6, 800 calories because my workout likely did not create that much of a deficit in terms of how many calories I burned. Now, the argument could be made that, oh, well, you're weight training. So not only are you burning the calories in that workout, it's not confined, it's not in a vacuum, right? When you weight train, and this is an entirely different subject I think we've already covered, but with weight training and why I'm so passionate about it is that with weight training, yes, you will burn calories within that session, right? You got your smartwatch on. It's going to tell you burn, I don't know, 300 to 600 calories in that hour, depending on if it's upper or lower. However, the calorie burning does not stop there when you weight train. Okay. You will have a continued afterburn. You're building your muscle. Your muscles are going to require more energy, which comes by the way of food. However, it's not as much as you think. Okay. So just so you guys kind of circle back to this comparison, when you just focus on cardio or group classes and group fitness and boot camps and all those things, right? Which again, I've done all of them. I've done probably every fitness style of class or whatever known to man at this point. The calories you burn are restricted solely to that workout. So let's just say you're like, well, I prefer to do cardio because I burn more calories. Great. Good for you, sister. You're probably going to look like a melted candle because all of the calories that you burn in that session via your little smartwatch that tells you are probably all that you're going to burn for that day. You'll have a little bit of they call it EPOC, exercise post-oxygen consumption. Oh, I got that right. Where you will burn a little bit after your workout, right? Your heart rate will be elevated and your metabolic systems will be kind of firing. So you'll burn for a little bit longer. But think of weight training as your savings account, your high yield savings account, okay? Where you are depositing money in there and it's an investment in your long-term goals, which is to have muscle for a longer time and be leaner for long periods of time. Now, that was super tangenty, but that's another topic I'm really passionate about. Now, let's get back to what I'm talking about here, because it's very relative to this, right? You go, you work out, you burn 300 calories, and then you think, oh, I deserve something else. And then you go eat 400, right? This is just like a loose example. And you could see how this keeps you in neutral, right? You are just at a plateau. Nothing changes. So research again shows that we overestimate how many calories we burn by a whopping, are you ready for it? If I lost you, come back, because listen to me, sister, a whopping 70%. What? 70 percent. We overestimate how many calories we burn. Okay. That is a problem, because then you can just think you're eating and it's a free for all. And honestly, I see this often when we get new members to the studio who do not partake in our nutrition coaching because it's optional. I see this time and time again, because they join, maybe they're super new to weight training. They don't, they're not super familiar, and they start loving it, and they come and they're like on month 1 and then month 2. And then by the end of month 2, they're like, oh, I'm just gaining weight. Nothing's changing. I'm exercising here, and they want to quit. Well, it's generally because, we only see you for 1 hour of the day for weight training, and the other 23 hours, we don't know what you're doing. We don't know if you're eating like an asshole, if you're eating too much, and you probably thought you burned a shit ton of calories that would give you permission to eat whatever the hell you want, and that is not the case, my friend, okay? The other thing is that studies show that devices, okay, so your smartwatches and also the machines where you like put your hands on there and it tells you your heart rate, they overestimate your calorie burn by 24%. So if you take your overestimation of your calorie burn of 70%, and then you take your overestimation of your smartwatch's calorie burn by 24%, that's a shit show. And that's why you're not losing body fat. So if you eat more calories and you overestimate your calorie burn, this is hindering your fat loss. All right. So what do you do? Well, stick to a daily caloric intake, right? We already talked about tracking. Got to figure out what that means for you for your results. Set a consistent workout routine. Now, a lot of people don't think about this, but it's important, because if you are hitting a plateau and you're struggling and you're like, things aren't working, but let's say 1 week you work out 2 days with weights, then the next week you work out 4, and then the next week it's only 1, and then maybe you sprinkle in cardio whenever you can, and there's no real rhyme or reason, there's no plan, then your calorie burn is not going to be consistent and your results are not going to be consistent. So you can see why having a bit of a structure, which I know a lot of people hate that, but think about your kids. If you have kids, if they did not have structure, all hell would break loose. We are just big children who need to give ourselves structure and routine and appointments and habits and things that are scheduled, whether we feel like it or not. Because how many times have you told your kids, go brush your teeth, and they whine and they moan and then sometimes they lie, right? We're no different. We need structure, we need routines, and we need discipline, not motivation, to carry those actions through so we are successful, whether we feel like it or not. Mic drop. Okay. So set your workout routines, then keep track of your weekly weight, like we talked about earlier. And if you have not had any changes, then you need to adjust your strategy. You need to adjust your plan. What does that mean? Maybe you need to slightly decrease your calories or slightly increase your exercise. I usually recommend one adjustment and keep going another few weeks before you do it to both. Most people will get ahead of themselves and they will want to slash calories and add cardio and add another training day. And I say minimum effective dose. Okay. What does that mean? When you pick up a medicine bottle and you have your bottle of Tylenol and it says 2 pills, recommended serving size is 2 pills. Well, if you have a really fat, big migraine, you're not going to take 10, right? Well, hopefully not. You're not going to take 10. You're going to take the minimum effective dose to actually kill the migraine. Your health and fitness should be no different because it leads to burnout if you don't. People give up, frustration, injuries, overwhelm, and also setting yourself up for future issues. If you then set your threshold of exercise incredibly high and your calories incredibly low, then your body adapts because our bodies are adapting machines. And then where do you go from that? You're going to have to consistently add a ton more exercise and keep dropping your calories. And that, my friends, is a recipe for hell, not only in your body, but in your mind. And I know because I've been there. Okay. Contest prep. My strategies and my philosophies as a contest prep coach are very different than most in that I don't like to make changes to both of these measurables. I like to make changes to one. And that is why I like to prep people for a longer time. And I suggest if you have a significant amount of body fat to lose, you give yourself a lot of time so you do not fall prey to these shiny objects and thinking that you want to do both and just get there faster. Okay. Number 4, we're rounding the corner at the last mistake. And this is one that doesn't get talked about often. However, a lot of people don't realize that they are recomping their body. I left it for number 4 because it is the most challenging one to actually do, but it does happen. And we see it often in our studio because we get a lot of women who are new. They've never done weight training, and this is a new exposure to them. And what they do is they recomposition their body. Now, what that means is we're not turning fat into muscle, okay? Because fat and muscle are 2 different tissues. And I know I have a podcast on that recently, okay? What we're doing is we're burning fat and gaining muscle simultaneously. And what happens when you do that is that your body shape changes, but the scale doesn't do a lot. And that lasts sometimes for some people a couple months, right? A few months, particularly if they are really, really new to weight training and they're not monitoring their diet super, super closely. We see this happen time and time again. Now, most people think that weight loss needs to equal numbers on the scale when that is not the case. And that is also why tracking your progress is very important. And we're going to cover that here in just a second. But you assume that your weight is not dropping and therefore you're not losing fat, which is not true. So again, it happens when you're newer to training. If you are coming back to training from some time off, we do see this happen as well. And if you just started getting serious, and what I mean by that is if you were like a casual exerciser with weight training, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm doing this thing 2 to 4 times per week, like religion, and you're really knocking it out. We do see that happen as well. Now, this is what's likely happening. You're likely recomping. And this is a wonderful thing as long as you are not attached or assuaged by the number on the scale when you get on the scale. Okay. So what's happening is you are building muscle, which is great. We want that. That is the gold mine, right? That is your high yield savings account. And while you're doing that, you're also losing body fat at the same time. We want this. This is what you want. This is amazing. And if this is happening to you, do not get discouraged, but I'm going to tell you what you need to pay attention to. So if I lost you, come back. All right. Get off the tiki-talkies and join me. Likely your body weight will stay the same. However, this is what you need to keep in mind. And this is what you need to take away from this podcast. All right. You need to measure your progress in other ways every single week. What that looks like is tracking your strength in the gym. If you are noticing that you're gradually increasing your strength on your lifts, likely a sign you're recomping. All right. If you notice some of these other factors, like the scale's not moving, right? Your measurements, super important. Tracking your measurements. And the measurements that you are going to want to track in my opinion, is just two. Don't stress yourself out with 18,000 different measurement points. Okay. That frustrates people and then they just do nothing. I want you to pay attention to two things. I want you to pay attention to your waist measurement right where your belly button is, because your belly button doesn't move and you'll get it right every time. And then your hips, right? Because generally, if you are weight training, if you're in my neck of the woods and you believe in my philosophies as a female, you're training your lower body. You're training your legs probably one day and your glutes a separate day. Okay. We likely want to see the glutes perk up, right? We want to see those glutes raise up and perk up. And how does that happen? That happens with gaining muscle and working hard in the weight room. So measuring your glutes, which is your hips, along the widest part of your hips with your feet together. Okay. Belly button is pull your tummy in as if not sucking it in, but if I was to come and punch you in the tummy, what would you do? You would brace your core, right? That's how you want to measure your midsection. Don't like push your abs out or suck it in or do any of that. Just get it right around that belly button. Write that down. Check that every single month. The other thing that is incredibly helpful is weekly progress photos. So that way you can do a side-by-side comparison. Again, similar to weighing yourself, your progress photos and your measurements should be done consistently under the same conditions. Same day, same time of the day, fasted, after you pee and poop, all those things. Okay, same thing. So for example, let's say that you're training and for 6 weeks, you see your strength is increasing, your weight has stayed the same, but your hip measurements are up a little bit and your waist measurements are down a little bit. Fucking let's go. Snatched motherfuckers. Okay. These are signs that you're recomping. So just freaking relax and know that it's working and keep going. And you're just at that level in the video game that you got to beat that next boss. And then as soon as you pass that boss, you're going to be well on your way to seeing things change on the scale and your body shape is going to continue to change. Okay. Y'all, I got ranty today, but I feel like it was what you needed to hear. I know that you're tired of struggling with your training and your workouts and your diet and starting over. And this is an important episode for you to realize that there is so much within your control and there are mindset shifts that you can make. That what is the alternative? You do nothing, right? I know that fat loss can be very confusing and it can be incredibly demotivating, especially if you are putting in the work and you're not seeing the results. But I want you to know that this episode is chock full of actionable things and things that you need to think about differently than how you've been thinking about them for you to continue along your journey and stay disciplined towards your goals. So just to recap and tie this up with a pretty little bow, the first one is we underestimate our calorie intake. So you're going to need to track. The second one is we get stuck into tracking our progress as only being the scale. So you need another method, which is going to be measurements, pictures, and your strength, which then leads us to number 3, which is don't be eating back your calories, boo-boo. Okay, you did not deserve that venti mocha frappuccino with extra whip and a chocolate drizzle. Okay, stick to consistent calories and a consistent exercise routine, those two in tandem. And then last but not least, you could be recomping. So with that in mind, I want you to ask yourself, is my strength increasing if my weight is staying the same? And also, what is my hip measurement and my waist measurement when I log those things consistently at the same day and time of the week? All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. That is the 4 things to consider if you are struggling with reaching your fat loss goals. And as we move into the wrap up, I want to leave you with 2 things to think about. First is I want you to take a step back and go over in your head the various points in this episode, and I want you to apply them. I want you to really do the work. Okay. You're on that level. You are playing Super Mario and maybe you're the motherfucking princess. Okay. And you are at that level and you're just like frustrated because you can't beat that boss. Well, this is your cheat code. All right. It's up, up, down, down, left, right, A button. Okay. And then second is you have to understand that this is a process. And like I said earlier, remember, what is the alternative? You do nothing. Well, if you do nothing, then nothing changes. So rather than throw this strategy of whatever you're doing right now in the trash can, try to refine it and get better at understanding it and understanding yourself and seeing where you might be missing the mark. You're going to improve your results and you'll be ahead of the game. You'll fight the bosses and you will be in the castle looking fly as, you know what, enjoying the rewards of your hard labor. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love sharing all these tips and tricks with you guys because it's amazing. Like the feedback that I get over on Instagram is it literally like when y'all DM me, it just makes my day, right? Like it really reinforces that what I'm doing here on this planet, my passion, my purpose is changing lives. Even if I never get to work with you or meet you, girl, I love you. Okay. So don't forget, I made a thing for you. It is a plateau buster guide. So make sure to find that link somewhere and let's make other people's lives easier, right? A lot of times I take in information, I learn so many things, and then it's just with me, right? What I've been doing is sharing more of that on social media, books I'm reading, tactics I'm learning, things that have nothing to do even with health and fitness. So I would be immensely grateful if you would share this episode with one friend and just tell them there is some good information in here. And I think you might enjoy this episode. And listen, every time you do that, a princess in the Super Mario world beats another boss. And then we are all a bunch of fucking princesses living in a castle, living our best lives. So let's spread that shit around. All right. I love you. I can't wait to come back again next week and I'll see you. Bye-bye.